Hey, Mark and AJ here from Whole Latte Love. Today we're going to go through setting up a really long video, right?
Yeah.
The Crem 1 Duo V, but everything you'd need to know. What specifically are we going to take a look at?
Yeah, so this one isn't a full review video. We've got one of those on this machine, and the link to that will be down in the video description. But today we're going to go over what's in the box and how to get started on the machine, take you through the full menu tour, and anything else you would need to know.
And it is kind of long, so we've got those chapters down there if you need to get to something right away, so do use those. But let's take a look at what's in the box. All right, let's take a look at what comes in the box. Now, when you take the cover off of your machine, the box, inside this will be on top of your machine. It's got everything that comes with the machine in there. So we got the drain line, very nice. Got the plumb line, it's gonna be sealed up in a plastic bag here. Then the portafilter. I do like this portafilter. It's a double spout, it's angled. So when you go to tamp, it's kind of level for you already. I really do like those a lot. And inside of the portafilter here, got the 18-gram basket. Also with the machine, you'll get a 7-gram single and a 14-gram double. That's the traditional Italian double. 3 filter baskets, that's kind of unique. Usually don't see that. Then we got the blind or backflush disc here. We'll show you how to do that coming up later in this video. Along with that, we're going to get 8 of these Urnex Puro tablets for backflushing. We'll show you how to do that. Hey, check it out. An actual milk pitcher comes with this machine. That's pretty rare. It'll be in that plastic for you. Do like this because it's got the markings on here so you know how much your milk you're putting in your pitcher. And oh, something else you never really ever get. Yeah, I've seen it a couple times, but an actual real live tamper. It's got some nice weight to it, so you won't need to pick up one of those if you don't want to. And then we got the group brush in here. We'll show you how to do that when we go through the backflushing. Oh, and the steam tip. Never see this hardly. So the machine's gonna have a 2-hole steam tip on it, but you're also gonna get a 3-hole steam tip, so you can choose whichever one best suits your frothing style. So that's what's gonna come in the box with the machine.
All right, so this is your initial setup when you first get the machine. You're first setting it up to go if you're running off of reservoir. So the first thing to check, it should come from us like this, but there's a switch, a valve on the bottom of the machine that says either tank or tap, and that needs to be set to tank.
And we're set to tank.
And we're set to tank, so we're good. All right. Beautiful. And what that does, if it's set to tank, it'll run off of your reservoir, which is in your machine. If you can't find this in the box, it is inside the machine already. I already pulled mine out, filled it with water. If it's set to tap, we'll get into how to plumb it in later, and that's what that setting means. So when you first turn on the machine, it's going to need to fill your boilers. And to do that, it's going to fill the steam boiler and then fill your brew boiler. So that'll take a decent amount of water. So have your water ready. I've already kind of pre-filled some of mine in here. And I will just put that in. This reservoir can only go one way into the machine. You can tell by this little lip here, that lip needs to contact a button on the inside to say that is in there, it's set. At that point, obviously you want to plug it in. This power cord also comes in the box, and that just plugs into the back of the machine. Once you do that, flip it up.
And it does take a few seconds for the machine to kind of wake up on initial power.
Yeah, if you don't see anything for a couple seconds, don't worry. You'll see a little loading bar once it does, a Crem logo. And then you want to make sure your drip tray is in place too, because eventually we will be running water through this. And that sound you hear right now is the steam boiler kicking on. And that will fill first. And while that's doing it, let's talk about the water that I'm putting into this. You have a couple different options for filtration in the system, and we always recommend filtering your water going in so you don't get scale buildup inside the machine. One option for that is the BWT Best Save M. It's a pad filter that just drops right into the reservoir, and that will filter your whole tank for that load. But the one drawback of this is that you have to let it sit in there for 12 hours to filter all of the material in there. So it's an option.
A lot of water. It's maybe not the best option.
Yeah, an option may not be the best option. What we typically do in the studio and what we recommend to customers is to use a BWT Penguin pitcher. This has a filter in it that will take calcium out of your water and replace it with magnesium, so that you don't have to deal with scale in the machine. Much better. Your espresso will taste better, and you know your machine's clean inside. So I just heard my pump kick off, which means that the steam boiler is finished. At that
Kind of telling
point,
us to lift the lever.
yeah, it's telling me to lift my lever. And then now you're seeing a countdown from 90, and it's going to need to have that lever up for the entire 90 seconds. And even though water is coming out, it's still filling the brew boiler that whole time. I'm just gonna take a quick peek in my water reservoir because it is filling both boilers. I need to fill up a little more just to make sure it doesn't run dry.
So just so everybody clearly understands, right? That lever's got to be up for 90 seconds. It
Yes.
has to go through this whole count, or the boilers are not going to heat up.
Yes, even though you have water in there and it's coming through, it's still filling the boiler. Now, after that finishes, you'll put the lever down, and at that point, the boilers start heating up. And at that point, you will see your temperatures start to increase on the screen. Even when they reach your preset temperatures, your desired temperature, maybe around 200 degrees Fahrenheit, that doesn't mean the machine is necessarily ready to brew right away. Because this is an E61 system and a thermosiphon, you have to heat up all of this metal in the system. That's generally going to take about 20 to 25 minutes to get everything warmed up, ready to heat. While that's happening, you want your portafilter in the group. It's fine to have it in during this part too. I just kind of interrupted the water flow. Water can still go through it. It'll heat everything up. And we only got 6 seconds left. We're getting towards the end.
But again, very important to have that run the whole 90,
Yep.
or the machine will not heat.
So now I can put my lever down. It turns the machine off. All I have to do is press that top left button, and now you see the numbers starting to rise, to heat up, and 20, 25 minutes, and you'll be good to brew.
And don't expect to see 164 on your machine like
Yeah,
you did, because
yes.
we had reset this to a factory state, but had been using the machine before.
Yeah, so it is a little warm already. Yours will be a lower number, but yeah, you'll be ready to go after about 20, 25 minutes.
All right, I'm going to show you how to plumb this direct to water line and connect the drain line. Always a good idea to connect the drain line if you're going to plumb the machine. So the tools we got over here, depending on what connections you're using, might be a little bit different, but if you've got a Phillips head screwdriver, 3/4 inch, 16 millimeter crescent wrench, and a pair of pliers maybe, it's really going to be about all you're going to need. And here's the stuff we're going to connect. Talk about those more in a minute. I've also got a towel here, so I'm going to flip the machine backwards here, because there is a thing we have to change.
Take your lid off.
You know, thanks AJ. You know, in rehearsal we did this, and I had a water full reservoir, and I flipped it over backwards. Don't do the same thing I did.
Yeah, make sure your reservoir is empty.
Yeah, it is empty. And also, you know, probably have your drip tray off when you do this. All right, so underneath the machine here, a couple things. First of all, we're going to change this guy right here from tank to tap. And that's just a valve inside the machine. While we're under here, I'm going to connect the drain hose here. This is just press fit. You don't need to put a clamp around this or anything. But just as long as you get it up there nice and tight, that's all you need to do. You know, it's one of those things, whenever I move one of these machines around, I always end up sitting a foot on a power cord. It happens every single time. But not that time, because I was paying attention. All right. Put this guy back up here. All right, so first thing, let's go around. I'll jockey the machine around here so you can see what we're going to do. So, little cap over. There's some of my residual water from my mistake. Take this cap off. And then the hose that comes with the machine. It's got this little right angle adapter on here so you can have that go whichever way you want. Now usually I can just put these on hand tight and they seal up pretty good. But whenever you do plumbing, of course, check for leaks. And if you got to tighten something up a little bit, and do that. I do like to lift the machine up just a little bit so I can get a little leverage on this with my fingers. There we go. Okay, got that on.
So where's that drain line going to go once you hook that
Oh,
up?
right, the drain line. So one thing you don't want to do, and a lot of people might want to try and do this, is connect this up to that, that little, if you have a garbage disposal, they often have a little input for the dishwasher outlet. You don't want to hook that up to that. This needs to go into what we call a standpipe that's open. So you can't seal this to a drain connection. It needs to be an open to outside pressure so that it will actually drain. Also, when you route this, make sure it stays below the level of the drip tray so that it actually drains. If it's running up like this, your drip tray will not drain. Okay.
Worst case scenario, you could probably go to a sink just for the
Yes,
time
yeah,
being
you
if
can
need
flop
to.
it into the sink.
But the standpipe is ideal.
It is. So here's this little adapter that we provide for all our plumbed-in machines. This goes from a British standard pipe thread to a 3/8" compression fitting. So you want to turn that in because this is British standard pipe thread, the thing that comes with the machine here. And then this, that's the 3/4. Just get that in there, it's snug. Again, you don't have to go crazy with that. So my water line, right there, it's 3/8". This is over to our filter. We'll talk more about that in a second. Now these you do want to crank down a little bit because it is a compression fitting. I'll just get that on there finger tight if I can find the thread here. There we go. Oh. That's the 16mm right there. So I'm just going to take that 3/4" wrench against there, the 16mm here, and crank that down a bit. And that's it. And of course, I have a shutoff on this line. Very important you do that. You know, if you ever leave something plumbed in like that for a long time, you're going to be away for a while. Turn off that shutoff. Okay, so if we got the drain in there. So here's our drip tray. It's got the hole already in here. It's plugged though. So I'm just going to undo this plug. And then anything that ends up in the drip tray, do save that. Anything that ends up in the drip tray is going to go through that hole, down into the little collection cup right here, and then out our drain line. All right, so let's talk about filtering. So what I have over under my sink over here is the BWT Best Max Premium. This has a pressure regulator on it. So what we like going into these machines is a minimum of 2-bar pressure, but we want to bring it down below, you know, what's usually in most households, which is somewhere in the 6-bar area usually. This household line pressure in PSI, 6-bar is 60 and 30, that's about 90. Somewhere between usually 60 and 90 pounds per square inch. 2-bar, that's about 30 pounds per square inch. So this has an adjustable pressure regulator so you can bring that pressure down. Great thing about this filter, it uses patented technology. So for calcium to magnesium ion exchange. So you're not going to get any scale on your machine if you use a system like this. It's also got, of course, particle filters, carbon filtration, all that good stuff. You know, it's really important you have good water, not only for your machine, but for the taste of your espresso. Now, there's one other thing we have to do. We do have to go into a menu here just to let the machine know that we're going to run from a plumbed-in line. So let's go around and do that. All right, so let's see what you have to do in the menus here. So right now, my machine is on. Notice I've got a little error code here that the reservoir is empty. That's because I dumped it all over myself in rehearsal. So don't do that. But the reservoir is empty here. But we're going to change this. So first thing we got to do is press this button up here to turn the machine off. That allows us to get into the technician's menu, which is right here, a little T with the gear here. So you push that button. Now the machine is going to want a password. The default password on these machines is 111, but I only have to put in the first one, which is nice. So the first one, then it kind of auto-fills the rest. And now I'm going to use the button up here again to go to the reservoir icon, which is like a little empty reservoir right there. And it's checked right now, so it thinks I want to use a reservoir. So I just want to get to the X here. So just press to the X. That tells the machine I don't want to use a reservoir. And confirm that by hitting that. We're good to go. I can go back home now. Machine is still off. If I want to turn the machine back on, just press this button and the machine is back on. We're all set, ready to go, running from a plumbed-in connection.
All right, so looking at the display here, there's a few things going on. You've got 2 temperatures, and the top one is your brew boiler temperature, and the bottom one is your steam boiler temperature. And if you look next to it, you'll see a little icon popping, flashing on screen. And when that's flashing, that's the PID controlling the heating element in that boiler, which is actively heating it. So it's sending little pulses of energy to keep that boiler at a really precise temperature. Down here, bottom left button, you've got Eco. It's a one touch to turn on Eco mode. And I'll get a little deeper into what that actually means when we get into setting up Eco mode. But that's your home screen here. To get into the Barista menu is the top right button here. And what the Barista menu is your most commonly accessed menu features and settings. So it kind of may seem overwhelming at first, looking through all these different icons and not knowing maybe what they mean. But once, I swear, once you use this for an hour, a couple hours, you'll get used to it right away. A lot of these things, honestly, you'll never need to change. You may go in once and set it and forget it, but you really do kind of get a feel for what each thing means pretty quickly. So we'll go through each one. This first icon here is for gradual soft pre-infusion. If you have the Duo V, this doesn't apply to your machine. You can just leave it and ignore it. If you have the Crem 1 infuser, this is that thing that ramps up your brew pressure to a settable amount of time. So right now it is on. If you don't want it, you can set that to X and that will turn it off, but I want it on. So I would click next, and now you can set the time that that's on from anywhere to 2 up to 30 seconds. So if I want that slow ramp up of pressure for 20 seconds, I'll leave it right there. Click the B to go back, and then I'm back to that root menu. Next up is the boiler temperature. So this is your 2 boilers. On the left here is your brew boiler, on the right is your steam boiler. And if you want to change the temperature of that boiler, just enter the one. What I like here is that it'll show you both units, both Celsius and Fahrenheit. And we'll go over in a minute how to set up the default unit for your machine, but it's nice that even as I'm adjusting, you'll see both numbers changing. So I know exactly where I am, regardless of my preferred unit. So let's say I want that to be 93.5 Celsius, 200.3 degrees Fahrenheit. I just click the top right button, that locks it in there. And now my machine will set that as my brew boiler temperature. Same thing over on the steam boiler. This can go up to 220 or 125 Celsius, 257 Fahrenheit is the max. We'll go right there for our maximum steam pressure with the maximum steam temperature. So press back again, and moving over to the next set of menus, you've got eco mode. So I mentioned earlier, there is eco mode on this machine. There's 2 different things. One is called eco, the other is called standby. What eco mode does, if I go and I turn that on, it says 1 hour, and I can change the times on that, but if I stick with 1 hour, what that means is after 1 hour of inactivity, the machine will automatically lower itself to a lower boiler temperature to keep your boilers warm. So if you do need to access again, it won't turn them completely off. It'll keep them warm, so it'll be quick to heat back up to temperature, but it'll save energy in case you have long periods of inactivity. So I'll leave that on 1 hour. And that means that after 1 hour of inactivity, it'll enter that mode. This is standby mode, and that can be set. It has to be at least an hour different from your eco mode time. So if I set eco to 1 hour, this has to be at least 2 hours. But it could go up to, I think 12 is the max. But let's say after 8 hours of inactivity, I want it to just shut the boilers off completely and put the machine to sleep, essentially. And then you can come back and wake up the machine with a button press or a lever lift. But that's your eco mode, your standby. On the home screen, when I showed that eco in the bottom left, even if my eco mode is set to 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever, pressing that will enter it right then and there automatically, and it'll slowly lower your boilers to that temperature. After eco, we have the option to turn on and off individual boilers. Let's say I'm only brewing espresso. I don't really need to steam. I'm not doing any milk drinks or anything like that. I can leave my brew boiler on, turn my steam boiler off, and lock that in. I'm going to turn that back on for now because I like it on, but that is how you would turn it off. After that, you've got your date and time here. So this is in military time. It's a 24-hour clock, and your time of the day. That's another one of those things you'll pretty much set and forget unless you're in a daylight savings time area. But you can scroll through, set your time, your day, and your date. Your format for month, day, year is also settable in these menus. We'll go over that as well. Just cycle through to confirm all of that. After that, you have your auto on off. And this is, you can set this for one on off time for each day of the week. So to activate, you go to the check mark, click forward. So I've got a couple times I've already programmed in there for different days of the week. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday's empty. So if I want it to turn on at, 2 o'clock on Tuesday and turn off at 5 o'clock. So
You're an early riser.
Yeah, it was less buttons to push to scroll through. But let's say I want a drink at 2:30. If I set it to this, I don't have to worry about waiting that extra half hour to heat up. The machine will always be ready when I get to it. If I wake up later on the weekends, I can set a later time there. So this feature I like a lot because it just kind of eliminates wait heat up time, and it saves energy by turning off on its own.
And if you like, you can turn all these off all at once, like globally, like if you're going out of town or something.
Yep, to do that, I would go
front
back, and there's that check mark there. If I go to the X, that just turns all of your auto on-off times. When you are using auto on-off, leave your on switch on the machine flipped up to on. You're just going to leave your machine physically on, and the machine will take care of the rest. After that, we've got the this timer here is how long your machine will display your shot timer after you finish brewing your shot. So right now it's 5 seconds, which I think is pretty good, but let's say I want that time to stay on the screen a little bit longer, 10 seconds, go up to that, lock it in, and go back. After that, you've got your counters. So there's two different settings here. One, this is your machine counters. Your total counters of every espresso that it's brewed or every coffee that it's brewed in the lifetime of the machine. This is not resettable. That top number is liters of water that has gone through machine, but that is not applicable on this machine. That's only a later model that has a flow meter in it. So that bottom number, I've brewed 70 coffees on this, and it only counts if you have brewed for 5 seconds or longer. So if I've just kind of done a flush of the group or something for 2 seconds, that's not going to count towards my total time. So there's that. Over on this side, this is a resettable timer. So it's kind of like a trip odometer in a car. If I wanted to reset my time at any point, this has been 51 coffees since my last reset. After our counter, we've got our units over here. So Fahrenheit, Celsius, pretty self-explanatory. I'll leave it in Fahrenheit, go back. And then next to that is the date format. So month, day, year. I can change that to day, month, year, year, month, day. But I like month, day, year, so I will stay there. The last thing here is it'll say logo. Don't worry about that, doesn't apply on this machine. And one more button, it gets you back to the start. Press your home button and you are back to the beginning, and that is the Barista menu.
All right, let's get you into the service or the technician's menu here. It's one and the same thing. This is a menu you're probably only going to go into very rarely, maybe once. Do some basic settings in here and never have to go back there again. But we'll show you all the defaults and what everything does. To get in there, you're just going to hold the upper left button until the display says off. And then you see a little T with a gear here. That's how we get in there. Next, it's going to want a password. The default password is 111. And you only have to put in the first one, so just go up to 1, and then you just enter, and it kind of auto-fills these next 2 here. And we're in the technician's menu. So first up, this is where you can totally disable eco mode. So back in the barista menu, you're able to just hit a button and have the machine go into eco mode, take down the boiler temperatures. You can turn off that availability here by just putting an X right there. Then you won't be able to do that in the barista menu. I do want that available, so I'm going to leave that on. And we'll go to the next thing. So this is where you set the actual temperatures that the boilers are going to go drop down to if eco mode is entered. And you can see they display both in Celsius and Fahrenheit. The range here is 122 Fahrenheit to 194 Fahrenheit. I have mine set at 122, but you can set yours wherever you like. You can see the Celsius and Fahrenheit change at the same time. But I do want mine down at the 50C or 122 Fahrenheit, so I like that. And we'll go hit that button. And then we get the same setting for the steam boiler here. The range on the steam boiler, 221 Fahrenheit to 248. Again, you can change this as much as you want. I like the 221, so I'll leave that right there. All right, next up, to get to the next menu, just press this button, press arrow ahead. Now the actual PID settings. Now these you don't want to change. And there are PID settings for both boilers, both the coffee boiler with this button, steam boiler here. I am going to go in there and I'll show you what the settings are so you know if you happen to make a mistake and do change them, you'll be able to change them back. For P, it's 1.0. For I, it's 0.01. For D, it's 2.0. For B, it's 2 degrees C, 4 degrees Fahrenheit. And for E, it's 9 degrees C, 16.2 Fahrenheit. But again, don't change these. Really no reason to ever do that. And I'll show you the settings for the steam boiler here. P is 4.0, I 0.07, D 2.2, and B is 5 degrees C, 9 degrees Fahrenheit. And then we're done with that. So now we can go to the next thing here. Up next, this is for pressure profiling setup. Doesn't apply to this machine, only on the Crem 1 profiler. So just leave this set to X. Then here, these are the pump voltages. Again, these apply, they don't apply to the Crem 1 Duo V. It does apply to the Crem 1 infuser. Minimum is 12 volts, maximum is 24 volts on the infuser. You just want to leave those right there. Now we are in the service and cleaning alarms. So here you can, this isn't going to apply on a machine without a flow meter, so it doesn't apply to either the Crem 1 Duo V or the infuser, just the profiler. But here's where you say, you know, if I want if I want an alarm after 20 liters of water are detected by the flow meter, that's where you set that, but you can change that. Again, doesn't apply to these machines, so we'll just leave those right where they are. But you can get an alarm based on the number of coffees brewed. So if you wanted to say, set this up to a number like 50, which is what I would do a backflush using detergent with after. I can set that to 50. Then I'll get an alarm after 50 brewing cycles. I believe it has to be 5 seconds of actual brewing to count as a brew cycle. So I'm going to leave that at 50 on my machine. All right, next up here, we have boiler priority. And this is really handy. It's always going to come set to the steam boiler priority, but you could change it to coffee boiler priority if you want. We really do suggest leaving it at the steam boiler. The steam boiler has a heat exchanger in there, so it's going to preheat the water going to the coffee boiler. So we suggest leave it there, but if you want to make it coffee boiler, that's up to you.
And that has to do with when it's heating up, right? Which one the machine heats up
Yes.
first.
Yeah, that's just when the initial heat up, which one's going to get heated first. Next up, we've got our water source selection here. Right now I'm set to tank. So this is, if you want to use a reservoir, the check mark here. I could say I don't want to use a reservoir, and this would be plumbed in connection. And then the D, we just ignore, it doesn't apply. So I'm going to set this to reservoir because you're going to get another thing that you can set here if you're using the reservoir and not plumbed direct to water line. So I'm going to set that, and then when I go here, what this is how long the machine will continue to brew. So if you're pulling a shot, how long it will continue to do that when it senses low water in the reservoir. This is set to 20 seconds right now. I'm going to set mine to 15. I like that. And again, you won't see this if you're plumbed direct to water line. All right, this here is for pump voltage. It does not apply to the Duo V with the vibration pump, only applies to the infuser, which has a rotary pump. Here, you can set this from 12 volts up to 24 volts. If you want your machine to run a little quieter, leave it at 12 volts. You'll get the quieter operation. Again, this applies only to the infuser, not to the Duo V. Next up here, we've got the steam boiler probe sensitivity. This is set right here to middle, pretty much. You can change that to max. If you were using really, really soft water that didn't have a lot of minerals for some reason, and your boiler isn't sensing correctly, you can move that up to maximum sensitivity. You can also take it down to lower. We suggest that unless you have a weird water situation, you'll leave that right in the middle, just like that. All right, next up, this is a place where you can enable or disable the installation startup program. We don't want to do that, but if you were to store your machine for a really long time, you can tell the machine you want to set it back to like it hasn't had water in it before. So you'd want to drain all your boilers, come in here and activate this. Then it'll go through the startup routine so it fills properly. But we don't want to do that, So we're going to leave this at X. Next. This is a way to, this does not apply to this machine. This is only on the Crem 1 profiler. It allows you to import and export profiles, pressure profiles. And last up here, this is where you can change your password if you want. The machines are going to come defaulting to 111. If you wanted to change it here, you just keep pressing buttons. So if you want to make it 333, it does autofill the next ones. I don't want to change mine. I want to leave it at 111 because I'm very forgetful. So, but you may have a reason why you might want to change that. I am not going to change mine, so we'll leave that right there. All right, if we press one more time, we're going to go right back to the start. Now, if you needed to get back to another setting, you just keep arrowing through and you go back right through and hit all of these again. And if you ever just want to get out of this, you just hit the upper left button there, and our machine is off right now. To turn the machine back on, just press again, and we are back on. You can see that I had set the machine to use the reservoir, and our reservoir is empty. That's that little indication there. So I need to go fill my reservoir.
So next up, I'm going to show you how to do a brew pressure check and adjustment on the Crem 1 Duo V. So this isn't something you normally have to do. You can if you want, but we bench test and calibrate all of these machines before shipping them to you, so it has the proper brew pressure when it gets to you. For a vibration pump machine, we set the pressure at the gauge to 10 bar in a closed system, which will result in 9 bar of pressure at the group when you're actually brewing. So things you'll need for this: a blind filter, which comes with the machine. You'll need a long, narrow flathead screwdriver, and then one of either of these, either a little pick or a roll of duct tape. I'll show you why in a minute. So you're going to take your portafilter out of the group and put your blind filter in it. To do that, a little trick is just kind of pry up the edge of the filter basket there till it pops out. Pop this one in. And so on vibration pump machines, the brew pressure is adjusted by an OPV, or overpressure valve, and I'll show you how to get to that. Just spin the machine around here. So on this machine, that valve, that screw, is hidden behind this little trap door. So it got a little plastic cover on it, so you could either kind of pry that off, or what I like to do is just take a little roll of duct tape and push it on nice and good and pop it off. Keep that so you can put it back on when you're done. And then you probably won't be able to see too well, but the screw is in there, kind of up and to the right, and you'll have to reach it with a long screwdriver. And I'll show you in a second how to do this, but when you're adjusting pressure, if you turn the screwdriver to the left, counterclockwise, you'll turn your pressure down. And if you turn it to the right, clockwise, you'll turn it up. So let me spin this around. And I'm going to lift my brew lever. Remember, I've got my blind basket in there, so that's just going to pressurize the entire system. And you'll see the pressure going up on the gauge here. Should stop around 10 bar. And so I could kind of look around and try to adjust it and look, but I'm going to ask Mark to lend me an extra eye here while I look for that screw.
Always helps to have a friend, right?
Yeah, so let's say I want to turn it up a little. I would turn that to the right. Are we going up?
We are at 11. I mean, it was just under 11.
Okay. So I'm going to turn it back down now and tell me when I get to 10-ish.
You're at 10 and a half-ish.
Okay.
Getting closer, a little more, a little more, a little more, and you're right at 10.
Okay. Stop there. You can turn take your brew lever down, and now we're calibrated again to 10 bar of pressure.
Let's take a look at how to do backflush. We're going to talk about what you can do daily and what you can do weekly. So what you're going to get with your machine is 8 of these tablets, these Ernex Puro tablets. Use these for backflushing. I do have Ernex Cafiza, which is essentially the same thing. We're going to use that when we get to actually doing the weekly maintenance. So on a daily basis, to backflush, what you're going to do is take out your regular filter basket here, and I have this neat little portafilter ejector tool, little tool, big name. You could use the edge of a basket like this to pry it out, but this one makes things even easier, just like that. So put in our blind filter basket and put this on the machine. You do want the machine hot when you do this. What we're going to do is just raise the group lever and let it run for 10 seconds. Really nice that we have the little timer right here. And we're gonna do this, we're gonna repeat this process 5 times. I'm not gonna do it all 5 times because it's boring. So run it for 10, and this is daily. This is what you wanna do daily. Then let it sit for 5 seconds. I'm gonna kinda estimate that, and then lift it again. And we'll let this count up to 10 again. This is highly entertaining, I know. And there's our 10, and then let it rest for 5. Then we'd repeat that. We do that 3 more times, and then we're done. That's a daily deal. Okay, now for weekly, again, you're gonna get these with your machine, but I'm gonna use this Cafesa here, which is essentially the same thing by the same company. You can also use this for soaking your filter baskets and portafilters. It's absolutely incredibly good at getting off that coffee goo. And then also another little thing I'm going to use here is this is also from Ernex. This is their little scoops brush. Now you're going to get a group brush with the machine. See, this one's a little bigger. It's also got this handy little scoop right here for measuring out the Cafesa powder for the back flushing. So you just take a level scoop of this, put it in that blind filter basket, attach this to the machine, and same thing that you do on a daily basis. We're going to let this run for 10 seconds. Now our machine's pretty clean. It's not unusual when I stop this to see a bunch of brown gook come out of here. So there's our 10 seconds. Put the lever down, and we'll let it sit for 5. And again, I'm kind of estimating this. It's not, you know, the timing, that 5 seconds timing isn't critical. Just give it a little time to work. I'll raise it back up. We'll probably see a lot more detergent coming out of here. And again, if this machine had seen a lot of use and wasn't cleaned, you'd see a lot of brown gook coming out of here. There's our 10. Yeah, we got a little brown there, not too much. So you'd repeat that 3 more times for a total of 5. And once you got that done, what you're going to do, I've still got some left over there. I'm going to wipe this out. Then we're going to rinse, and it's the same process for rinsing this out. So we're just going to let it go for 10 seconds. And I'd say do this, you know, like 2 or 3 times. It's that same process, 10 seconds on, 5 seconds off. And you kind of watch, you can see that's very detergent-y there. That's a fun word to say.
I think it's a word.
Yeah. And you keep doing that. And you know, you want to see this. You'll do that again, repeat this 2 to 3 times, or until you don't see any more gook or foam coming out of there. And that's really all you have to do. Now, a lot of people, what they like to do after this is go ahead and just brew a shot that they're going to sacrifice to the gods. So you go through a whole motion of brewing a shot of espresso and then just dump that one. Then you should be perfectly clean, ready to go. You don't have to do that. A lot of people do like to do that. And that's daily and weekly maintenance back flushing on the Crem machine.
So next I'm going to show you how to drain your boilers on this. There's 2 different boilers, so we're going to drain them separately, 2 different processes, and we'll start with the steam boiler or service boiler. To drain that one, you want your machine to be up to temperature because you need that extra pressure in the steam boiler to push water out the bottom because we're going to be draining it through the steam wand. So to do that, my machine is hot. I'm going to turn it off and then just open my steam valve. And I'll let that drain for a little bit. And so why and when would you need to drain your boilers? One, if you are storing the machine, if you're putting it into storage for a while, you're not going to use it for, I don't know, months on end. Or you're shipping it, maybe you're moving, or you just need to do some sort of shipping. It's always a good idea to drain your boilers when you do that process. After we drain these, and that's just about almost done. That should be good. After we drain these, if you are draining them for a while, there's one setting in the menu that you should go in and activate so that the next time you power it up, it'll enter that kind of restart, factory reset mode. So it'll take you through the boiler loading process again. If you want to see where that icon is, go back a couple chapters into the service menu tour. But anyway, now my steam boiler is drained. I'm going to leave my machine off, and I'll show you on the underside where there's a valve, a mechanical valve for the brew boiler. Before I do that, there's a couple things that if I tip this machine up, they may fall off. So I'm going to take this off, and you want to make sure your reservoir is empty. You can leave it in there, but if that's full and you tip the machine, it's going to go all over you. Mark knows that pretty well. So
yes, I do.
also, I'll just pull my drip tray off for now. just to show you where this is. So if I tip up the machine, you'll see underneath there's a boiler drain with a valve that says open or closed.
Upside down here, but
Yep.
readable. Yep.
This is just to show you it. I'm going to tip this back forward. Once you know where the valve is, it's not hard to reach it from with the machine actually level. But to do that, you want to have the drip tray in place. I like doing it without the top metal piece on it so that it causes a little less of a mess. You can go directly into the tray here. So I'm just going to reach underneath and look for that valve. And now be aware if your machine is hot, this if it's been used recently or heated up, this will be hot water. So just be careful when you're draining it. So be aware it's a 1.7 liter brew boiler and a 1.9 liter drip tray. So you've got plenty of room to drain your entire boiler into your drip tray. So that'll take a little while. I won't let you wait for the whole thing. But again, if you're shipping the machine, if you're storing it, if you're putting it in somewhere cold and you don't want liquid in there that could potentially freeze and damage anything, that's how you would drain your boilers.
All right, that's the Crem 1 Duo V. Really everything you need to know, right?
Yeah, hopefully if you watch that whole thing, you're set. That's all you need.
That's right. But if you do have questions, use the comments. We're always here to help you out and love doing that. So I'm Mark.
And I'm AJ.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here soon for more of the best on everything coffee, brought to you by Whole Latte Love.